So here we have a list of quizzes that is coming from the server. And what we'd like to be able to do is to navigate to that particular quiz based on some URL that is parameterized by the ID of that particular quiz, right? So for instance, we could add here a link that would allow us to navigate to that particular quiz. For instance, we could have a link. Or we could use a hyperlink that has an href that points to quiz followed by the quiz dot ID, right? Where this is take the quiz, right? Right. Notice that it could be a hyperlink, right? That if I hover over it, quiz. Oh, is it? I'm sorry. It's quiz underscore ID. Notice that if I hover over it at the bottom, you could see that we have the quiz and then the ID that follows, right, for that particular quiz, right? So if I hover on top of any one of these, presumably I should be able to navigate to that particular quiz and display all the questions for that particular quiz, right? Now I can render this slightly different. Instead of I could leave it as a hyperlink, or style it as a button, perhaps as a class, button primary, right? And then perhaps move it over to the right-hand side, and this might be float right. It'll push it to the right-hand side so I can click on it. Right now, those links are not linked to anything, right? So if I click on it, there's nothing mapped to it. Right? It's going to complain and saying, hey, I don't know what to render, right? Because there's no route mapped to that hyperlink. So notice I get an ugly complaint here from Angular, right? So how can we handle that? Basically, what we'd like to be able to do is pass this URL parameter as an argument to another component, and that component can then use that parameter to go and fetch that particular quiz for that particular ID. Right? So, for instance, let's create a component that would do this. Would do that, right? Okay. So let's create a brand new component. So ng generate. So this is a quiz taker. Okay, the component that allows you to take a quiz. Right. So let's render that. Okay, and what we'll do is that since we don't have anything mapped to this URL pattern, let's map this URL pattern to this brand new component we just built. Right, see if we can navigate there. So let's go to routing, and let's create a brand new route. And we'll say that if the URL looks like this, quiz followed by a quiz ID, followed by anything, /quiz, /something, whatever that is, right? I want to render this new quiz taker component. Okay. So now if I go back and I click on one of these, notice that now it doesn't complain, and instead it loads our quiz taker. Our quiz taker works. Make sense? So the intent for this would be for this quiz taker to be able to parse this from as a path variable. This is on the client, not on the server. We know how to do that on the server. On the client, we'd like to be able to take that as an argument, right, and say, okay, I know which quiz to show you, right? And it will show you one or another depending on which one you click on. So let's work on that. Let's go to the quiz taker. On the component here, let's change this a little bit. This H2, this will be quiz taker, right? And what I'd like to be able to do is be able to parse that parameter. Right, so to do that, we're going to use what is called an activated route. An activated route is a service, is an Angular service that listens, right? Listen to changes in the route, right? And it can notify you. You can start listening and be notified whenever that route changes. And then you can, for instance, say, well, okay, well, let me know what the parameters are on that route, for instance. Okay. So let's do that. Let's in the constructor. Let's parse that, and let's oops. What do you want? Okay, shift there. It's not loading my activated route. Okay, fine. It's from here. Let's import that. Okay, so now it's imported. So we've built our own services. This is a service provided by Angular. And what we're going to do is that once we have that route, we're going to subscribe. We're going to subscribe to that service and say, I want to be notified every time the route changes, because I'm interested in those parameters. Right? So on ng init, we're going to subscribe to changes. You say, hey, activate a route. If anything changes in parameters, I want to subscribe to that. And this is going to notify, we're going to pass it here, pass me all the params as an argument whenever they change. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the parameters, right? And in particular, we're extracting a parameter called quiz ID, right? It parses the entire path, and it maps them to whatever pattern we have here, and then it maps them to a map using the names that we declared here. Right? So we're going to locally have a local quiz ID value that is going to be nothing, is going to be empty, and we're going to populate the quiz ID with the params, and the name of the parameter is also called quiz ID. Okay, right? Excellent. And now we can, for instance, in the components, we can specify here that the ID of the quiz ID we can specify here. Quiz ID, yep. And we can navigate there. Where is it? Where'd it go? Notice that we have the ID. See that? We have the ID of the object. We have the ID of the object. We can use this ID of the object to go and fetch that particular quiz. Right? We're using find quiz by ID in the service. Right? Notice that this ID, depending on if I go back and I click on a different quiz, I will get a different ID. Right? It'll get the so that's 43, and this is 42. See that? Right? So we can now, once we have the ID, we can use it to go and fetch this. Right? We can say we can now implement the service to go and fetch this. Right? So let's implement that now.